Thank you for joining me at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp. The popular and award-winning game Splendor has gotten the two-player treatment. Learn how to face off against a rival jewelry guild in this How to Play video for Splendor Duel. Splendor Duel is a drafting set collection game for two players that takes about 30 minutes to play. It's designed by Marc, André, and Bruno Cathala and published by Space Cowboys, a part of the Asmodee group. Splendor Duel has some similarities to the original multiplayer game Splendor, but it is a separate game with distinct rules. In this video, I'm going to cover setup, gameplay, and the victory conditions. The video has timestamps to help you navigate to each section. So let's start with the setup. Before I go through each step, I want to show you what the completed setup looks like on the table. There's the familiar pyramid shape of cards, but there's also a main game board to hold the tokens. Make sure you leave enough space for both elements when you set up the game. Now let's go through setup step by step. First, set up the cards. Shuffle the 3 decks of cards separately, level 1, 2, and 3. Then reveal 5 cards from level 1, 4 cards from level 2, and 3 cards from level 3. Place the victory tile above the level 3 cards. The formation should look like a pyramid. Next, set up the board and tokens. Place the board beneath the cards. Place all the tokens in the bag. Then randomly draw tokens and place them on the board following the printed spiral. There should be a spot for every token. Place the privileged scrolls and the 4 royal cards near the game board. Finally, randomly choose who will be the first player. The other player gains a privileged scroll and places it in front of them. That's all of the setup for the game. Now it's time to talk about gameplay. In Splendor Duel, you're playing as a master of a jeweler's guild who makes splendid pieces for the royalty and leaders of the day. You're trying to gain more renown than your rival by being the first one to complete one of the 3 victory conditions. The game doesn't have any rounds or phases, just player turns. Players will alternate taking turns until someone completes a victory condition, and then the game immediately ends with that player as the winner. The victory conditions are shown on the victory tile. Have 20 points, collect 10 crowns, or have 10 points in the same color. So what can you do on your turn? You have several options, but there is a specific order. First, you can choose to take optional actions. Then you must take a mandatory action. At the end of your turn, if you have more than 10 tokens, you must discard down to 10. I'm going to explain the mandatory actions first, then circle back to the optional actions. For your mandatory action, you must do one of these 3 things. Take adjacent tokens, take a gold token and reserve a card, or buy a card. Here's a look at the mandatory actions in more detail. You can take up to 3 adjacent tokens from the board and put them in your supply. The tokens must be next to each other in a horizontal, vertical, or diagonal line. The tokens can be gems or pearls. You cannot take a gold token with this action. Here are some examples of tokens I could take. These 3, even these 3. But I cannot take these because there is an empty space. The tokens are not next to each other. I also can't take these 3 because one of the tokens is a gold. I could choose to just take these 2 instead. If you take 2 pearl tokens or 3 tokens of the same color with this action, your opponent gains a privilege scroll. The board shows reminders here. Now, I know some people like to be sneaky with their resources, but in this game, your tokens must be visible to your opponent at all times. No hiding them. Another option for your mandatory action is to take 1 gold token from the board and then reserve a jewel card. You can take any card showing in the pyramid or draw a card from one of the 3 decks. You should keep your reserved cards hidden from the other player by keeping them face down or holding them in your hand. You can have a maximum of 3 reserved cards at a time. You cannot choose this action if you already have 3 reserved cards or if there aren't any gold tokens on the board. This action is helpful because it guarantees that the other player can't buy the card you reserve. Also, this is the only way to gain gold tokens, which can be spent in the place of any other gem or pearl. The final option you have for your mandatory action is to buy 1 jewel card from the pyramid or from your reserved cards. Each card shows its cost on the bottom left. To buy a card, you must meet the cost requirements by paying tokens from your supply and/or using permanent gem bonuses from your cards. Gem bonuses are shown on the top right of the card. Here are several ways I could buy this green earring card. Return a white, blue, red, and black token from my supply to the bag. Return 3 of the required tokens and a gold from my supply to the bag. Return a white and blue token from the supply to the bag and use my red and black gem bonuses. These bonuses are ongoing for the rest of the game. You can think of them as permanent discounts. If I have gem bonuses for all 4 colors shown on the card, I don't have to spend any tokens to buy it. When you buy a card, you place it face up in front of you. It's best to stack the cards of the same color in a line so you can see the card's gem bonuses and point values. The points are shown on the top left. Some cards will have an instant one-time ability shown on the banner below the point value section. When you buy the card, you can use the ability. There are 5 ability types. This ability allows you to take another turn immediately after your current turn ends. This one lets you take a token from the board that matches the color of the card. If there aren't any matching tokens available, you ignore the effect. This one gives you a privileged scroll. If there aren't any available, you can take one from your opponent. This ability lets you take a gem or pearl token from your opponent, but you can't take a gold token. This ability is a little different from the others. You have to place it on another one of your cards that has a gem bonus. This card now has the same color bonus as the one it's laid on. You can't switch the card later in the game, and you can't buy the card if you don't have any other cards with gem bonuses. One final feature that some cards have are crown icons at the top. These icons are used as one of the victory conditions and are the only way to acquire royal cards. When you have 3 crown icons, you can take one of the royal cards and perform its ability. When you've collected 6 crowns, you can take a second royal card. So those were the 3 options you have for your mandatory action. But before you take that action on your turn, you have the choice of performing optional actions. When you begin your turn, you can choose to take one, both, or none of these optional actions, use privileges, and replenish the game board. If you decide to take both actions, you have to use your privilege first, then you can replenish. Here's a closer look at these actions. You can spend your privilege scrolls to take any gem or pearl token from the board. 1 token per scroll you spend. You cannot take gold tokens with a privilege scroll. When you take this optional action, you choose how many of your scrolls to use. The second optional action is refilling the game board. Mix the tokens in the bag and then fill the empty spaces, starting with the centermost space and following the spiral. Place tokens until the bag is empty. When you take this action, your opponent gains a privilege scroll. There's a reminder for this on the board. It's probably obvious, but you can't take this action if the bag is empty. It wouldn't help you at all, and you'd be giving your opponent a privilege. A general rule to remember about privileges is that if you're supposed to gain one and there aren't any scrolls available, you get to take one from your opponent. Of course, if you already have all 3 scrolls and you're supposed to gain one, nothing happens. You're already privileged to the max. So we've covered just about everything for the game. On your turn, you can perform optional actions, and then you must perform one mandatory action. There's a helpful player aid on the back of the rules that lists out everything. Players continue taking turns until someone wins the game by completing one of the victory conditions. Those victory conditions are having a total of 20 points on all your cards, having 10 crown icons, or having 10 points in one color of cards. Here's a helpful tip. The gray cards that become another color count toward the point value of that color. At the end of your turns, be sure to check to see if you've achieved a victory condition. The game ends immediately when one of the players does. So, that's how you play Splendor Duel. It's similar to regular Splendor, but different enough to feel like its own game. Are you a Splendor fan? Do you have a favorite two-player game? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.